the system, so don't say anything you don't want recorded. Beep. And look, it started right when I said that. So now we should be able to go.
Morning, Jeff.
How are you?
Just the same.
Me too.
Oh, good. Is this our printout?
I'm sorry?
Is the printout of the Times or different?
No, that's complaints. That's a complaint log.
Oh,
That's
good.
just a vendor complaint log.
So most of them were made by us.
I'd say most of them, a good percentage of them probably.
So we got pots.
Good morning, everybody. We'd like to get our meeting started this morning. So before we get started, a few basic meeting rules. Number one is if you'll cut all your cell phones to silent. If you need to take a call or make a call, if you'll step outside, we'd appreciate. There could be some differing opinions and statements in the room and made today, so we would appreciate if everybody would respect each other's opinions and statements. When we get to the open discussion area, we'll recognize people by hand. So if you raise your hand, we'll let people go in order as they raise their hands. If it gets backed up, just remember to raise your hand again in case we're not recognizing you. So a few introductions to get started. I'm Brian Kellenberger. I'm the Director of Beach Operations for Visit South Walton. We're Walton County's Tourist Development Council. Mr. Jim Bagby is the Executive Director of Visit South Walton. We have members of our code enforcement, Jeff McVeigh, Harold Taunton, and David Goodman. David stepped outside for crowd control. Stan Sunday, the interim director for Visit South Walton's here. A few other staff members. And if we can start on this side of the room, if you can just give your name and your organization, we'd appreciate it. And we'll head across the room that way.
Destin Holland, you're here. Philip Poundstone, you're here.
Lisa Belshie, resident.
Lacey Meyer, Beach Services, Inc.
Kurt Tate, I'm Hibiscus Coffee, yes, nuts.
Harold Dane, Goodwall. Adam Stewart, Goodwall. Bill Williams, Goodwall, yes. Bill Williams, Jr., White Mountain Beach Service. Eric Johnson, Rear Mountain Beach Service.
Susan McDonald.
Virgil Towson, Beach Service. Chief Williams, Gulf Coast Beach Service. Matt Garrett, South Florida.
Barbara Basin, South Walton, Florida. Peter Maxwell, South Walton, Florida.
Robin Stewart, South Walton, Florida.
Logan Woburn, Beach Brothers Beach Service. Travis Woburn, Beach Brothers Beach Service.
Joshua Davis, Southern Beach Management.
Jessica Adams, Reed Beach.
David Vaughn, South Walton Fire District, Beach Safety. Dale Westgate, Ryder Beach Service.
Tiffany Howell, Hilton Sanderson.
Valerie Lofton, South Walton, Turtle Watch.
Kevin Orr, Commander Beach Service. Steve Clark, Gulf Beach Service. Robert Gray, District Commander, U.S. Sandy Sanchez, South Walton Fire District. John Lester with Sheriff's Office Beach Patrol. Don Savage, District East. Wiley Beach, over Fire District, Beach Service. John Beach, Fire Beach Service. Hunter Meyer, Beach Service, Patrol Ranger. Dave Meadows, Ladetcha Beach Service. Greg Walkley, Southland Beach Service.
Okay, appreciate it. With a few opening words, Mr. Bagby.
Oh, thanks, Brian. When we go into Q&A, we're going to pass around the mic because we are live streaming this and recording it so that we can go back and capture it. You know, really, I want to thank y'all. This season was much better than last year. I don't know if it was the ordinance changes or just everybody understanding that we all play an important role in bringing our guests here and making sure that they have a great experience. The purpose of this is real simple. The TDC, as a management objective, is committed to continuous improvement. We hot wash everything. If we do an event, we have a hot wash. How can we make it better next time in the next iteration? You know, we had one of these last year and the year before because we're all committed, and I think y'all are all committed, to continually improving the guest experience in this destination. And so what we want to do is identify what we could have done better, what you could have done better, what we could have done better, what the county admin, you know, the ordinances or whatever could have been better, what relationships. That's all this is about. This isn't about, you know, you drove over my chair, or, you know, my chair was there first and the guy next to me moved it and he didn't have, you know, we just want to get better. And as long as we all remember that that's the purpose of why we're here, we're going to have a great meeting. And I know we're going to have a great meeting. Okay. Anybody have any questions for me? All right. Thanks. Brian?
Thanks, Jim. Okay, as Jim stated, the purpose of the meeting is to go over what was good and what was bad for last season, and hopefully carry into next season strategy that will improve the beach, improve the visitor experience, and of course, improve the businessman experience. So, getting started, 2015 vendor-related code enforcement statistics. Up at the table here, I have the complaint log as well as a couple of graphs. The first graph is our citations written this year versus last year. As you can see, with a stepped-up focus on code enforcement ordinances that we enforce, as well as addition of another staff member, we increased considerably the number of tickets written last year versus this year. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's both, really. One is that it shows that we're out there and we are, getting our job done and hopefully enforcing the beaches as we're tasked with. Second is that the bad is that obviously there's still some lack of recognition of the ordinances or just willful disregard for it. So the one thing I want to take out of this meeting is the revisions to the ordinance that were enacted last year, how we implemented those, when we implemented them, what we expect with those revisions in the next year, as well as any input of how they worked or how they could be improved, because there will be another opportunity in the off season this year. The County Commission has asked me for a summary of our activities this year and recommendations of if there needs to be any changes to the ordinance, either the ones that were changed last year or additional changes, or pull back on some of the changes. So I have our general activity report. We're still printing the month of June. It'll be here shortly, but these will be ready for distribution after the meeting. And what it is basically a tabulation of the complete ordinances that we enforce, the number of contacts we made, the status of each one of those contacts, and then it's in graph form, so you can get an idea of our activity and how we really, it's a gauge of how we were enforcing it and how y'all were complying with it. So with that being said, you can pick up the information after the meeting. So 2015 beach vending ordinance revisions. Biggest one was the 50% delineation of the beaches, where we took the regional beach accesses, delineated them into a vendor zone, which is approximately 50% of the beach. We felt like those worked fairly well or really well. Once we got it started, within 2 weeks, we seemed to have about 90% compliance. The non-compliant ones were probably people that weren't informed of it properly, or new staff members with the beach vending company that weren't completely aware of it. The other ones were the 7:30 change from 7:30 from 8 a.m. for the setup time. Once again, it's by text or by 7:30 a.m. One of the areas that we saw some issues with were once again, it's not by the South Walton Turtle Watch representative walking by that section of beach. It's by the text for that section of beach. And the way that works is they have section leaders, 4 of them, and when those section leaders receive the text from the section walker, there's 18 sections, then that leader sends in to the texting program, and then it goes out mass text to everybody that's signed up. So if you, the owner or manager, are responsible for distributing that to your workers, you need to make sure you have the correct turtle text number in your phone, so you are receiving the proper information. And if you're relying on your worker to do that, then you need to make sure that they have it in their phone, because towards the end of the season, actually throughout the whole season, we experienced that problem of receiving a complaint from South Walton Turtle Watch that there was a early setup, which is, falls under the leave no trace ordinance. And usually when we would follow up on the complaint, the typical excuse was, well, we saw the walker walk by. Well, so right now we'll make it clear that there is no setup by the walker walking by. It is by the texting program. So if we can make sure that we all understand that, that includes all of our workforce, we'd appreciate it. The vendor delineation of the neighborhood beach accesses. The delineation effort consumed more time than what we had anticipated. So we didn't actually get all those posts out until actually late July or mid-July. It created some confusion because the ordinance said we would have them done by May 1st. We actually didn't receive approval of that ordinance revision right until the end of April. And then the effort to get them all out, combined with one clause in the ordinance that was existing that gives the upland property owner the ability, or they have to have written authorization from the upland property owner. So that's on public beach that is seaward of private property, and that condition usually exists in our older beach neighborhoods. Sea Highlands, which is east of 395, Seagrove 1 and 2, which is at 395 and west of 395, Blue Mountain Beach, Beach Highlands, and then some of the areas down in around Eastern Lake. We recognize that there was some confusion on it. Also, as the season progressed, we received some blanket notices from upland property owners that said they have not given any written authorization, so we had to adjust the vendor zones. Going into next season, we'll start the effort, of course, earlier at spring break, March 1st. We'll make sure we have any property owners that have not given written authorization, and we'll redelineate the zones as required and redistribute the maps. We'll ask for confirmation from each one of the beach vendors that are a 2016 permitted beach vendor that they have received it and acknowledge it. Yes, sir, Clay. Do you have a question? Oh, okay. All right. So as part of that, the ordinance reads that you have to have written authorization from the upland property owner. Not always, or it's not a problem with what we call a specific place permitted vendor, because as part of their permit application, they have to supply it. Where it comes in to be a problem is with delivery vendors that are delivering to a neighborhood beach access or to a single-family dwelling or to a condominium where a renter has requested the vendor bring a set to them. So the ordinance reads that you have to have the property owner's written authorization. So if you have vendor or customers that you routinely rent to that are not a specific place permitted vendor license or permit, and your delivery permit, I highly recommend that at the first of the season you identify these property addresses and you seek out and get the owner's written authorization for the period of time that you plan to rent there. That might be all summer, so it would be per month. The county attorney has interpreted the code as that a renter that is renting the property cannot give that authorization. So moving forward in 2016, you'll see more of a focus by code enforcement on enforcing that section of the code. Like I say, hopefully it's all worked out by the vendor procuring this written authorization and submitting it as part of their package, and definitely submitting it to our office so that we can have it on file. What we do now is we put together GIS maps that identify the properties that have given no vending authorization, and then we'll also identify properties associated with delivery permitted vendors that have the written authorization to vend there. What it will do is it'll clean up and make our operations more efficient. We simply don't have the time to go down the beach and check each person's customer as if they have written authorization. So is there any questions on that, any comments on that?
Actually, to clarify.
Okay. If you'll state your name and,
It'll record it, Junior.
okay.
Thank you. Tammy Reinhardt, Emerald Coast Hydrobikes. I just want to clarify because, for example, if it's a single-family home that's rented, you're probably never going to run into the owner. So is this just for commercial properties or all properties?
Well, the problem we have is neighborhood beach accesses tend to be 10 feet wide. Some of them are 33 feet or 66 feet wide, depending on which easement or right-of-way they're on. What happens is the people renting the chairs automatically filter out east and west, and they end up in front of private property that is upland of public beach. All right. But the way the ordinance is written, and because we receive complaints on it, we enforce that portion of the ordinance. So if you are vending on a public beach that is seaward of a private property, be it single-family dwelling or a condominium or a townhouse unit, then you need to have that person's written authorization, the property owner. In the case of a condo or a townhome, more than likely it's community property, and that written authorization would come from the HOA chairman or president of the board. Okay. Any other questions on that? Jeff, you have that list of things put up? Real quick.
That's the printed copy, is that what you want?
Okay, other changes were insurance, which included you had to list Walton County as a certificate holder. Any issues with that? Any problems with that? Everybody, that was fairly easy to comply with. Other than that, those are the biggest changes. So, yes, sir.
Falling back on what you just said.
You gotta talk into the mic, Adam.
I guess my question would be, you guys are giving the upland homeowners, basically giving them permission over that property, that they don't even own, to kick vendors off. How can you guys do that when they don't even own the property? How can you put that in the ordinance?
Well, the Board of County Commissioners, makes or approves, adopts all the ordinances. Somewhere in the previous past, that section, and it's 2260-D8, was put into the ordinance. So it's not that we, code enforcement, are giving the upland property owner. It is part of the ordinance that we have to enforce because it's written as such.
Okay.
Don't know the exact reason why that was put in the ordinance, but at some point it was.
Okay.
And Adam, I'll address that question too. We believe part of the reason it was put in, if you go back to 2005, when they were doing the beach nourishment project, one of the concerns of the upland property owners is that when we did the beach nourishment in the western end of the county, that everything seaward of the erosion control line becomes public beach. And in fact, everything from 4 Mile Village to the Okaloosa County line, seaward of the ECL, is public beach right now. They were concerned that vendors would go out in front of their homes without their permission. Property owners were concerned that vendors would go out and basically set up 3 rows of chairs on a public beach that had been created in front of their property, and I understand their concern. I wouldn't want that, and so there were people that balked at giving easements, and there were some people that sued the county, if you remember back then, and so I think the county commission, in an attempt to balance, because everything is a balance, said, all right, if it's a public beach seaward of a private property, then we will let the private property owner have approval of vending. Now, me as an individual, I can go out on that public beach in front of, wherever in Miramar Beach and set up my 2 chairs. But they didn't want vending because vending, as y'all understand, has a connotation of not just the service of 1 or 2 chairs, but of rows and rows of chairs. And people didn't want that in front of their house, and they weren't going to give an easement. So I think that was the balance that was struck. That's my understanding. So it's not a giving. It's a balancing thing.
Yeah, I understand. I guess, my thing is, people staying on the north side of the road, they should have a chance to be able to get, our services also, and if that homeowner doesn't own that property, that person has just as much right to use that beach as the person who doesn't own the property. And Stallworth was one of the spots that I had an issue with because my parents actually owned property in the neighborhood. And there's like a quarter mile of beach that the whole neighborhood owns, but there's no HOA. Well, I was told I couldn't set up there anymore, and I got my parents' permission, and it's a beach for the whole neighborhood. My mom was out there sitting in chairs, and she was told, by a lady who lives on the beach, hey, you can't have these chairs here. And that's kind of kind of a catch-22, but it's giving beachfront property owners a lot of rights of property they don't own, I guess that's my issue with it.
Okay, we understand the beach out there at Stallworth. There are some people in that community that are dispute if that's Walton County Beach or if it's HOA Beach. So we received a lot of complaints from that area, and almost everybody really everybody on Stallworth or on Highland Road submitted a letter to us that they had not authorized any vending. And that's why you slowly saw those areas go away and us start enforcing that thing. But
I guess the other question is, over the years, we've had 2 different definitions. We've had vending and delivering, and somehow they have become one. So is delivering the same as vending now?
Well, what we have is 2 types of permits that are issued. One is a specific place permit associated with a parcel of property, normally a resort community, townhome, or condo association community property. And then we have delivery vendors. Delivery vendors typically do not have a specific place that they have under contract that they vend to on a regular basis. Not to say they don't have some regular customers that may be Gulfront or may be north of 30A. So the way the ordinance reads, which I think is what you're asking about, is that there is no active vending on public beaches, meaning you can't go down and set up what we call speculative sets, commonly referred to as ghost sets. Okay? So is that the difference in the definition you're looking for, or?
I guess vending is like I said, it's a fixed location. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? You're storing chairs on the property.
Right.
Whereas delivery's always been, it comes off the beach when it's done that week, and you can store it at the toe of the dens. The other question is, my company has moved to a thing called a self-serve, and it's where we take the equipment straight to the door of the house.
Okay.
And then they take it to the beach and do whatever they want to with it. How is that going to be handled if they go to somewhere they're not supposed to? It's no different than them buying chairs from Walmart.
Good question.
It's called a self-serve. We've been doing it for about 2 years now, and people love it.
Uh-huh. I don't know. That's a good question. Since we have not encountered that issue yet, we really not had to address it. My first response would be that you need to inform them that it is a commercial vending chair, and that there are vendor zones they need to set up in. Granted, now if they're at a single-family dwelling, they've rented that's Gulfront.
Yeah, but the chairs they get from Walmart are commercial chairs also.
Well, I see what you're saying, and, you know, the problem is how do we differentiate between what is delivered to the beach set and what is delivered to the back door set?
I mean, we could tag them. You know,
Mhm.
we could leave our names off of them.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you guys would like to make it easy on you. Okay.
We'll write that down and figure out a way that it needs to be, you know, enforced and regulated. Yes,
Hey,
ma'am.
I have a question with the self-serve. If the self-serve is delivered to the people's door, back door, then are they also told they cannot set up until a certain time and they have to take down at a certain time? Or are they just going to put up anytime they want and take down anytime they want?
Well, it goes back to what the ordinance reads, and our ability and the bed tax collector's ability to get that information to the visitor renting the property. And it says, you know, 1 hour after sunrise. Jeff, is that correct? Ordinance on regular people setting up? Or is it?
Was 7:30 after the Turtle Watch text, either one.
Okay, right. The problem being is it'll have to be 7:30 for them, because unless they get signed up for Turtle Text, then, you know,
This is
I mean,
just the
it'll be by the
revisions.
ordinance, Sharon. Now, how do we enforce that? Yeah, that's the bigger question.
First
We hope through this off-season to have a good push on getting the message out to the bed tax collectors with confirmation that they will get it out to their renters for the 2016 season. Yes, sir.
Is there a setup time for people that are not vendors, for example?
7:30 a.m.
Oh,
Yep.
that's
7:30
in the
a.m.,
ordinance?
or the ordinance now reads 7:30 a.m. or by Turtle Text.
That's for everybody.
Correct.
It's not just for vendors.
Not just for vendors.
And I want to go back, one of the things, as we go through this and we identify challenges we had this summer, please propose a solution, okay? So one of the problems that we've identified in Adam's questions, and we've identified it previously, is we've had an enormous learning curve on who owns what section of beach, because there have been a lot of people who thought they owned the beach that didn't own the beach, and there have been a lot of people who thought that they had some easement or some right or some vested interest in a section of beach, and they didn't. Brian and Jeff and I have spent more time with attorneys and land, you know, looking at the property appraiser's website, trying to figure out who owns what and what the distribution is, and we will continue to do that. But it would help y'all to know, and that's the purpose of the maps, is who does own what beach and who can give the right, whether it's a CO, a condo association, or whatever, because there are a lot of interesting ownership models in this county of the beachfront.
No, this is just a suggestion. You said to have a suggestion. How about on the chairs that are the self-setup? Could we have a tag that just lists the beach ordinance, that says you have to set up and take down at a certain time? And that way your renters who are self-setting up would know?
That's a good idea. Got one behind you, Junior.
Just to follow up on that, Dave Meadows, La Dolce Vita. Just to follow up on self-service, I mean, already you have vendors that are in violation of setting up prior to Turtle Watch times being released. And they're the ones that are held accountable, but they still keep doing it. So now you're going to leave it up to a tourist to self-regulate themselves. I just don't see that working. It's worth a try, getting more information out, but it's very hard to do. But the vendor that does drop off the door should be held accountable for any violations whatsoever. If it's still out and the customer did it, that vendor should be citation for it.
And I think that's what I wanted to go back and read the exact definition to make sure my memory was correct. But I think that's what the attorney's going to tell us. Because here's the definition of vending. okay? Vending means offering for sale or rent, or as part of a contractual agreement, any services, goods, or materials to be consumed or placed on the beach, in the bay or in the Gulf, or their adjoining waters, including but not limited to organized and for-profit instructional or exercise classes such as yoga, painting, swimming, surfing, etc. So if you're offering, you know, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'll go get a legal opinion from 2 attorneys, but the way I read this is if you offer for sale or rent, or as part of a contractual agreement, any services, goods, or materials to be consumed or placed on the beach or in the bay, then it's vending. And then, as you said, you're going to be responsible for it. But we will get that question answered before the preseason meeting. But my guess is that the word says what the word says, and it says you're responsible for the vending. So we have that as a do out, but that's the way the ordinance reads.
A follow-up question with that. Back to the 2005 when the ordinance was introduced about getting upland property permission because of the public renourishment. Is there a difference between county-owned property during that time and now? Hold on, let me make sure I get this right. You have sections on the beach that are public property up to the dune line, correct? And there's homes directly to the north of that. So you're giving that property owner the same right now to determine what goes on in front of his beach when he doesn't own the property, the same right as the property owner that owns up to the ECL line. I think that's what Adam might have been talking about in certain areas where the vendors go down in a subdivision or neighborhood that's often neighborhood access. A guest wants to rent chairs that's in that subdivision or that property, and now it's still public property. We're going to deliver to that area, but now you're giving that beachfront house the right to control what happens on that beach when they did not have the right prior to beach renourishment because it was county public property. So right now, I think the way the ordinance is written, how I'm interpreting is now that guy has rights to that public property to determine what happens on it where he did not before.
Yeah, he has the right to determine if there's going to be vending or no vending.
He didn't have it before, but he has it now. But he doesn't own the property. So I think that's where there's a problem in the way the ordinance is written. So I think maybe it needs to go back and look at it, and those who own to the ECL line can continue to have the right to determine what happens in front of their property, but a property owner that lives on the beach and that property is public to the dune line, he should not be in control of what happens for that entire area.
Okay, I think you're correct in the statement is that the ordinance needs to be relooked at because right now it is the ordinance. Be it fair or not fair, it's how the ordinance reads, and it's pretty verbatim. That will be a topic of discussions that we have with the BCC with our end of year summary, and if they ask us for recommendations on what to change or what not to change. So, yes, sir.
Back to the self-serves. An ordinance really, from what I'm being told, to be legal has to be the same for every group or person. So if I'm going to be held accountable for a set of chairs that I dropped off at somebody's house, for it to be a legal ordinance, you guys have to hold Walmart accountable if the people don't pick it up either.
No, because the ordinance is for vendors, and so it is for that group, and so it makes it the same for all members of that group. But it's very similar if you think about it as on the regional beach access where we had the 50% zone. We did have a few encounters of where people moved a commercial vendor chair over into the non-vendor zone. Our efforts were to explain the ordinance to them, ask them to move it back. But you, as vendor, when you set them up, as part of your agreement, whenever you talk to that customer, that said, by the ordinance, we're required to set up in the vending zone. I need you to leave this chair in the vending zone. It'd be the same way as you drop it off somebody's door, then you just say, hey, the ordinance reads that you can't set it up before 7:30, or if you choose to subscribe to the Turtle Text program, here's that information, and you need to bring it in 1 hour after sunset, so as not to be in violation of the leave no trace ordinance. But I think that was, it'd be very similar to us as TDC getting the word out to the bed tax collectors of all the ordinances, you getting the word out to your clients of the particular ordinances that govern beach vending.
So somebody who does, buy chairs from Walmart, they're held accountable to all the ordinances that we are also.
They are, yeah. As a matter of fact,
That's what I was getting at.
yeah, the difference is we pick their chairs up and throw them away. We'd bring yours back to the compound and give them back to you.
Okay. So that's
That's not equal treatment for everybody.
We do offer people the ability to come back and get them for 1 week under leave no trace ordinance for items that are serviceable. But to be honest with you, those chairs and tents are disposable, and they buy them as such.
And I'm 100% agreement with Dave. I feel like these property owners that don't even own the beach, they're getting more rights than the county. To be able to control property
Yeah.
that don't even own.
Like I say, I think the proper way to address this is to petition the BCC for consideration of revising that portion of the ordinance. Once again, it'll be in our notes in the summary because that had a lot to do with the ineffectiveness of the 50% rule that Neighborhood Beach accesses because it creates a moving vendor zone. And, in all actuality, you could conceivably get it to where there is no public beach except directly on that access.
If there's the 50-50 rule, and then on the vendor 50% side, a couple of the property owners don't want it in front of their house,
Right?
are you guys going to move it over to the other 50% side where they don't care?
Yeah, we've already started doing that. We had to do a few of those. Like I say, it was just a situation we didn't. I had anticipated it, but not to the degree that it came about. Because literally after we started setting the vendor zones, people asked what they were. We explained, well, I don't want vendors in front of my house. We had a few people that said, well, I do want vendors in front of my house because I rent from a vendor. And I think that all ties back into that 2260 D8, the upland property owner. If that term goes away, I'm not saying it will. If it goes away, then that frees up a lot of public beach for commercial vending.
I think that's the only way you're going to be able to get it to a 50-50 because otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
if you go across the beachfront property where it's public, but the upland property owner has the authority to have someone removed,
Mm-hmm.
more than 50% of them are going to say, we don't want that.
Yeah, I agree. And, yeah, and that's exactly what we encountered.
Yeah,
You know,
we should have just saved time and gone through and said, which guys do want vendors in front of your house,
Mhm.
and we'll section that off. We could save county money, time, effort,
Yeah.
instead of moving stuff around.
Yeah, and we had some issues where property owner said, I don't want vendors, but then the people they rent to called and said, I'm trying to rent, but I can't rent.
Neighbors that they do stuff that I don't like sometimes, but I don't get to tell them, hey, stop doing that. It's basically the same thing. It's
Yeah.
not theirs, it's the county's.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page on that, and that that section of the ordinance needs to be revisited and considered by the BCC.
Okay, so just so we're straight, because Stacy's taking notes, your recommended change in paragraph 8 would say, no vending on private property shall occur without written annual authorization from the property owner. There's no change to that. Everybody agrees with that? The next sentence where it says no vending on public beaches, I think what I heard was you want to say, where an erosion control line has been established, no vending on public beaches shall occur without written annual authorization from the county, any private property owner whose southern property line is contiguous to the proposed vending location. And then that way, that would exclude the public beaches where it only goes to the dune line or wherever. Is that what you're recommending? Okay, all right. So Stacy got that, and we'll that'll be in one of our proposed changes then.
Any more discussion on the 50% rule at regional beach accesses or at neighborhood beach accesses?
Is it being enforced now? And just the question I'm asking is the Grayton Beach.
Yes, it is.
It is. So your 2 white stakes in the middle of the beach is where the vending is supposed to take occur.
That's where it's supposed to take occur.
So all the vending that's going on to the west and to the east of those are being citationed.
Written warnings, verbal warnings, and or citations.
That's been going on all summer long, and it hasn't changed.
Not all summer long. That was one of the later.
I set up there every day, and I set up in the middle, and every day there's vendors on both sides of the line. So, okay.
I just want to confirm what he says, that happens every day.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to confirm what he said, that happens in Grayton Beach. It's like, well, we're going to wait till we get caught mentality, I guess, because it happens all the time.
Yes,
I
sir.
get this from my guests, not just me, but from my guests as well, that I ask specific questions because this is a great concern to me, so yes, what he says is true. Somebody's not following the rules.
Yeah, but back to what he was saying about Grayton. I come down there, haven't been on Grayton, setting up chairs in a week or two. I noticed the white stakes. They say, well, I got renters who want their chairs by the lake. They're going to get set up right here in the middle, It's wide open. So, it was easier on me. I could get down there at 8:45 and have all the room in the world, but I'm turning money away all week because I got people who want to go down by the lake, and I'm saying, well, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're telling me, well, there's 3 or 4 other companies down here. Why won't you do it? I say, well, trying to go by the rules, do everything the right way. And they say, well, I appreciate you being honest and all that, but we're going to go rent from someone else who will go down there and violate the rules so we can be where we want to be. And then come to find out that, oh, well, we're not going to kind of really enforce it. So there's, lost over $1,000 over a span of 2 weeks because of I was doing something I was told, this is how you're supposed to do it. And then come to find out, well, you could have and you wouldn't really got in trouble for it,
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a section by the lake, a section towards the middle, and then one more towards the western side of the beach to kind of, and then another issue where it is now, that's where the boats launch. So
Mm-hmm.
that takes up a huge, I don't mind going by the rules. If they want to say this is where you got to do it, this is where you got to do it. But it's kind of hard to put a specific area on it when the boats launch changes every single
You're true.
day,
Yeah.
And they've been, and granted the code, they've been very knowledgeable and pretty lenient on that and understanding. And I'm not complaining about them by one means, but if we're going to go on and start enforcing it, there needs to be a few changes in that one as well.
Okay. So what I got down is there ought to be more vendor sections at Grayton Beach and consideration that the boat launch moves every day. So it almost would be, We're limited on the west end of it because of the 2 homeowners down there that gave us letters of no, they don't want vending. So, all right, those are good comments. I agree with you. People want, some people want to sit by the lake, and they ought to have that opportunity if they want to do that. All right. Any more on 50% zone? Written authorization?
One more real quick. I have a lot to say. Handicapped people, sometimes the 50% is too far away for some of my handicapped guests. Great was one, for instance, and maybe they should be able to get a special variance to be able to set up where, right off the boardwalk, because if they have a hard time walking, they can't always walk way down the beach, and there should be some kind of special, thing we go get from Jeff's, saying they're handicapped and improve their handicap, so they can be closer to the boardwalk. That's it.
If they're handicapped, they should have a handicap placard. So maybe that should be your solution to that. If they have a handicap placard for their vehicle and they're going to play that card for the beach, then they take their handicap placard with them. Maybe that would be an option for you when you start having that discussion.
I think we did discuss that because you brought that up in the pre-meeting, and I thought maybe I'm incorrect, but we had discussed if you set it up within like 30 feet of the end of the boardwalk, then we might look at that. We need to set a standard. Here's the problem. If your handicapped person can walk the 150 feet to the water line, they can walk over to the vendor area. So if they want to sit in the 8th row right there by where the boardwalk or walkover ends, I don't think that would be a problem, and we can probably come up with a solution for that. But they can't go down to the waterfront and get set up just because that's the side where the boardwalk comes over. Does that make sense? I mean, again, it's a balancing thing. So if we want to help and they are not able to walk, and truly we have beach wheelchairs, that we have bought for the South Walton Fire District. So y'all can have access to those two, or they can have access to those two. So I think we can find a solution here, but as long as y'all understand the solution will not be, I have a handicapped person, and because then we lose control of that beachfront.
A lot of my handicapped people, they don't even actually get the water. They just go sit in the chairs for a little bit just to see the beach. Right there.
Yes, sir.
Jake Williams, Gulf Coast Beach Service. Back to the written permission, and I think Jeff kind of knows what I'm talking about with this one at South Wall Street, and this is a good example. So you got the boardwalk goes down to the right side. The home's owned to the. Sorry, I get nervous talking in public.
Yeah, you're good.
So anyway, so off to the west side of the boardwalk. Those homes own to the 20-foot line. And then on the west side of the boardwalk, that home owns to the dune line. So if I get written permission for the Gulf Front home that doesn't own to the 20-foot line, but to the dune line, but if I get written permission, I can put sets out in front of that house, even though that's public beach.
Well,
And then the homes on the the west side, they own to the 20-foot line.
Wall Street is an excellent example of the problem of 2260 D8 and the 50% vendor zones. Wall Street, enjoys a stretch of public beach that is one of the we call fractional pieces of the beach. Okay. It's that pie-shaped piece that goes off to the east. You have a 66-foot easement. Road right away that comes down. That's what our access is on. So going by the code says you can't set up there because it's not the vendor zone.
Right. So only the west side where the homes do own to the high tide line then. And then because the east side they don't. But it's an empty lot and a house whose boardwalk goes straight to the beach,
Yep.
but I can't set up in front of that house.
Well, we're going to adjust that vendor zone based on the complaints we got last year from homeowners and from vendors, about the vendor zone was too far to the east. So we'll delineate that one into two zones.
Okay.
One of them will be, in front of that vacant lot. However, if that person comes in and says, don't want vendor in front of my house, then we're back to the diminished vendor zone, which will have to be addressed sometime in this off season.
Okay. Yeah, and because the homeowners, the big yellow house right there.
Yep.
So they actually own that open lot and the home behind it.
Right.
And anyway, I just had a contract with them for a few years through ResortQuest. So anyway, we just want to make sure we do it right and we're not going to step on anybody's toes. But yeah, if that gets moved over, I mean that's awesome. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Lisa, you got a question?
Well, I was going to mention just a consideration on the possibility of changing things for handicapped guest, is I doubt seriously that anybody would confront somebody that's in a wheelchair or, is obviously handicapped. I think you might want to consider, though, if somebody's part of a group that has 16 people in it and only one is handicapped, that might cause some consternation, with some of the rules. So just a thought if you consider changing it in some way.
We'll go back and revisit what we talked about the first of the year, and it'll definitely be in the recommendations or the summary to the BCC, and we'll let them make a decision on how they want us to implement and then enforce a handicap zone. Yes, sir.
What about in the areas that are marked?
Microphone, please.
In the areas that are strictly marked public area, non-vendor zone, in front, if we got a beachfront homeowner, they're in themselves, they don't rent it out. It's a non-rental property. It is theirs. They come down, only people who stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
They want beach chairs.
Mm-hmm.
In front of their house is a non-designated area for vendors. So you're telling them, say, well, you know what, you bought this beachfront house, but if you want beach chairs, you want the luxury of not having to bring your own stuff down to the beach, and you got a beachfront house under the impression that, well, I can kind of do whatever I want here in front of my house, but you're going to tell them, oh, you can't get beach chairs, you got to go over there with them. And they're the upland property owner, and granted, it is county property below them, but you're giving somebody the permission who's the upland property owner to remove a vendor when it's the other way around. It's very one-sided.
Well, the way the county lawyer interpreted it is that person can authorize vending or not authorize vending. It's not that they can select a vendor they want to use. So we did come across that situation on a couple of the areas that have public beach seaward of private property. And our solution was to move the vendor zone to in front of that house. Typically, it coincided with where the vendor zone was, and those people did not want it anyway.
And then if you were to, say, move that in front of their house, they couldn't sign an agreement with one person saying that you're the only company I want in front of my house. Nobody else can be here. It's either we can have none or everybody can be here.
Right. As interpreted by the county attorney, is that section of the code is not specific to any vendor. It is only for vending or no vending.
Okay. Yes, sir. That's all.
Clay, that'll just be a situation where you'll have to go get a site-specific permit for that location. You can't do it under your delivery permit. It'll have to be a site-specific permit.
Nope.
So that means you can't get a site you can't be the only person that can vend there then.
Right. Okay. Any more discussion on that? All right. Early setup, text versus walking by. Once again, for some reason, we're confused on why that's an issue. The report we get from the person in violation is that I've been doing it that way, or the walker said it was okay, or whatever. We talk with South Walton Turtle Watch. They're adamant that none of their walkers say you can set up after I walk by. It's always texting. So is there any, misunderstanding of that? Or does everybody understand that? And next year, is everybody going to abide by that? By show of hand? Please. It's very easy. It's it's a very easy thing to do. It's wait for the text program. The text program has proven once again that it is effective. The people that say they aren't getting them typically have a bad text in their phone or simply not paying attention to it. Yes, sir. Oh.
I think
I'll get back to you.
The county does a lot for the Turtle Watch group. you know. And, you know, like they ask us to put tags on our self-serve setups, you know, to help them. So I don't understand why maybe they, you know, couldn't wear a fluorescent colored shirt and pass by. And once they pass by, is it funny? I mean,
No, but here's the problem. In order to be, you know, enforceable, it's got to be consistent. So the only way to be consistent, and the way we agreed at the first of this year is that it's not by walking by, it's by the text program or by 7:30 a.m. So the concession was first of this year by the county and by Turtle Watch was 8 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. with the understanding that, okay, we're going to wait for the text or we're going to wait for 7:30 a.m. And because here's what happens, just like I explained, is you say that the walker said it's okay. The walker says, no, I didn't say that. We're not out there. We can't really do anything except file it as a complaint and, you know, follow up on it later on to make sure, you know, we got to then put a guy out there to watch you. You know, that's not effective use of our resources. We need people to play by the rules, and we can enforce the other codes that are on the beach that really are probably more important or deserve more attention than simply not following this one piece of the ordinance. Go ahead.
All right, first of all, let me just address the fluorescent shirt thing. We all do try to wear the same shirts to go by, but I'm a coordinator, and first of all, we're all volunteers. We're not getting paid. So we're out there because we love the beach and because we love this area. When I go out there on mornings that I don't walk, I'm going to check extra things that might have come up during the night or check on problems, or maybe I have a walker who is brand new, so I need to check on them. So you might see my shirt go by, but I'm not walking the area. So you might see my shirt and go, oh, it's clear. What's not clear, I'm waiting for my walker going, did I train them right? Is that person doing the right thing? Okay, so green fluorescent shirts or just seeing our shirt is not really the best way to determine that we have cleared the area. But I understand you saying that. But I'm responsible for the whole area, so I'm running up and down the beach, and then maybe while I'm out, I have something that I need to tend to, like a dead turtle that has washed up, so I'm not going to go to my house, change my shirt, or bring it with me.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple.
Is,
I mean,
I'm following the
text program works, so let's use the text program. I mean, if you go back and look at the log, I mean, during the first part of the summer, it's cleared well before 7:30. And it's not until later on in August where, because the sun is coming up later, a little bit more activity on the beach concerning turtles, in other words, hatchings, stuff like that they're having to deal with. So, but. I don't know about that. I think they're up. I think they're passionate about the thing.
The reason I specifically got the microphone was I wanted to address some of the vendors who come down after the season has started, which I ran into one, I think it was about mid or late May, who was setting up early, and I specifically went over and said hello and introduced myself and said, "Are you on our text program?" Because I wanted to show him how to do it if not. And I asked him if he went to the vendor meeting or any of them. He said no. He had just come down from Alabama and was doing vending with his own chairs. So he didn't do any of the meetings, and I said, well, when you signed up for the program, did you get paperwork that tells you about the times? And he didn't want to talk to me. I made friends with him, and every time I passed by, I waved to him and smiled, and he didn't seem like a happy boy. I think he was probably concerned with college bills and trying to make money in the summer. But I just wanted to say there are vendors out there who that's happening.
Yep.
So, and he's not someone who lives here and just pops in, does vending all summer, and then, but he did end up getting a clue, and he was very nice the rest of the summer once he knew that I was stalking him.
So my question is, what action did you take other than befriend him? I mean, because this is the first I've heard. Brian hasn't heard. So did Jeff know? Okay, that's, okay, then Sharon needs to come see me because that's not the way the system's designed to work. They are required to be permitted, period. Everybody in here went through the time to get permitted, and I'm glad that you made a new friend. Okay.
If he's in the books, I mean, if he's got a permit, I got you. Okay, well then one of the requirements though for him is that he goes and sits and watches the video before he gets a permit. So he may have told you one thing, but before I sign off on his permit, he's visited with Stacy for an hour and 40 minutes or whatever it is to watch the video. So I got you. Okay, good deal. I got you. Good.
Clay?
Yes, I was just curious to who actually sends out the text messages? You send them out?
Actually, I can tell you mine. So not here.
I just real quick, I get to say that. You know, it seems like a lot of times it says SWTW, whatever section cleared, and then at some point it started to become more of like a personable thing. You know, they single out, hey, beach chair worker, section 11, don't yell at this person, or
that was addressed.
Color, section whatever, don't make us say who you are, like you're taunting us or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not very professional. I mean, let's keep it section cleared.
Yep.
This and that. And
When
that's
that
unnecessary.
that was a misunderstanding by
and
South
never
Walton Turtle Watch.
approach. I mean, just do your job. We kind of try to work together, but you don't. You know, the less confrontation, the better, certainly. But there's no need for the singling out of any one company or person or saying what they're doing wrong.
Correct. That was addressed as soon as it happened, and it stopped shortly after it started. And Turtle Watch is aware of what their responsibilities and duties on the beach are. And I think moving forward that everybody will play like they should be. Yes, sir.
Every morning. I mean, this is 7 days a week. She's got, yeah, I mean, she gets up. So, I mean, in our section, like we're from 4 Mile to Captain Dave's. I mean, we've got a great relationship with a lot of our beach vendors, man. I know these guys. I know what you guys do. I appreciate the work you guys put in. And I think in our section, we've worked great. There's been very little issues. I mean, there's been some, but total respect. But, yeah, just remember on this end, man, these people, I mean, I see her. She's got a full-time job, and she goes through, and this is just to help you guys out. I mean, she could literally just not do the program. We cannot do it, and you guys would have to just wait till 7:30. But it's a sacrifice, and she's on it. And if someone calls out or someone isn't there, she's running down to the beach. And, that's just to make sure everybody gets to make their money during the season. Yeah.
Yep.
Is it an hour after sunrise?
9 o'clock we have to be done. That's it. That's for the state.
I was talking about before the total for the.
It's always been for the state, 9 o'clock.
The weekend.
Yeah, before this was established, yes.
Yes, sir. Kurt?
Why not just make it 7:30 and forget all this business of having to approve and text and all this? Why not just make it 7:30 for everybody? I mean, you're telling me that I can't go set up a chair before 7:30, but the beach vendors can because they got the text from the Turtle Watch.
Well, you can sign up for
Anybody can sign up for the text.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that they can set up before 7:30. Why?
Well, it was
Why?
part of the give and take of the vending ordinance.
So we got an ordinance that requires a lot more enforcement than it would if we just said 7:30.
That's a good point. However, because of the BCC tends to be small businessman oriented and try to be fair to all the people that they have to regulate in the county, then that's when they came up with the texting program.
I suggest that you change the ordinance to 7:30 across the board, since you're looking for suggestions.
Okay. All right.
Wiley Beecham with Burks. If you're going to change it to 7:30, based on the definition, that means nobody can take a kayak into the ocean until 7:30, because typically most of the kayaks are rented, paddle boards, any of that stuff, any of that such, because that's to the house delivery, like he was saying, the chairs earlier. I think we're focused a lot on the chairs, but there's a lot of other things that are being vended according to your definition. So, I mean, I can't go fishing at 6 o'clock in the ocean on my kayak that I rented for the entire week. And then who are you going to cite for it? That's another thing that's going to go into that.
John with Burks. I don't say a whole lot, but I'm on the beach 7 days a week, pretty regular. See all you guys. My question is, why don't I have any education on sea turtles? I should probably should at this point. Not calling you out. I'm simply asking why I don't, or had a conversation with any of you about any of that, because I'm there. There's no way you're there more than me. But anyways, thank you.
Sharon, do you want to address that?
Any education you want on sea turtles, southwaltonturtlewatch.org. It's there. We have everything on there. Our nests are listed, types of turtles, the ordinances about lights on the beach. Also, we post most things weekly on our Facebook page. So it's out there. And we always have any brochures. Just ask us. We'll give you brochures. You can have brochures on everything on sea turtles.
I went to the 4-hour class like the beginning 2 summers ago maybe at the Gulf Coast Community College, whatever it is. I feel like I can probably do the job y'all are doing. When I come down the boardwalk, I can look and say, can we not distinguish tracks? I can say this is this kind of turtle.
They Southwalton Turtle. Yeah.
But there's one problem. There's a thing called regulation by state and federal government, and that is called a sea turtle permit. You do not hold the sea turtle permit. I do. I would not give you permission. It is, FWC has said it's a conflict of interest.
Yep.
We could go on forever.
Yeah, let's not argue about that today. Sure. Harold.
You don't if you're a vendor.
I would like to know how to become a sea turtle volunteer. What are the requirements? What is the cost associated with that? Is there any schooling? What do I do to be able to go walk that beach down there and check for sea turtles myself legally?
Legally, you have to take the training, then you have to take our training. You have to sign up for at least one day a week, every week. You have to coordinate with the area coordinator. You have to walk that section. And you don't just walk the section. You want to set up your chairs. You have to go from point A to point B. Then you have to text them that you're done. And you also have to be responsible for flagging out the crawls, coming back and working with someone else to paperwork that crawl, do the work of the nest. I mean, it's just...
So who do I contact?
Contact Sharon Maxwell. We'll put you together after the meeting.
Will you say your name for me if you don't mind? I just missed your name, sorry.
Wiley Beecham with Burks.
Wiley? Oh, thank you, sir.
Hey, the problem is, man, you don't get to pick your section. If you want to volunteer, you're assigned a section. So
I understand that, but I'm just curious if there's some type of agreement we can all come to. We can all
Hey, guys, thanks, but we're here to get better for next year. So y'all get together after this meeting, and you can get the application to be a turtle walker or whatever and go through the training. Let's get back to focusing on how we're going to make a better experience for all our customers.
This is what I would like to suggest. I would like to suggest doing away with the time altogether. You set up when you see light, and if a vendor sets up over turtle tracks, fine us $5,000 and do away with all of it, because I can find turtle tracks. Anybody can find turtle tracks. You do away with so many problems right there, that alone. If a vendor sets up over turtle tracks, $5,000 fine. You do away with time, text messages. You save Jeff a lot of time. We don't have all this, arguing back and forth. And I'm going to be dead honest with you. I don't think, I know they love the turtles, but there's a little bit of.
All right, we're not here. We're not here to discuss personal issues.
Don't
But
go there.
let me ask you this, Adam.
Don't go where, ma'am?
Adam, let me ask you a question. What is the purpose for setting up so early? When I'm down there monitoring the beach, it's very rare that I see people sitting in chairs prior to 9:30 or 10 a.m. So what is the purpose for the vendor to get out at daybreak?
Because the type of service that I do, for me to be profitable, my guy has to cover a big section of beach. Somebody is not going to rent from me if they can't get their chairs till 10 a.m. And for me to be profitable, he might have to cover a 5-mile stretch of beach. And if he can't get started until later, he's not going to get it done. And the other thing is it gets hot out there. And I know y'all say, oh, these are young guys, da-da-da-da. Well, we get heat exhaustion too,
Mm-hmm.
And it's I've been doing this for since I was 16 years old. And it seems like the more rules there are, the more war there is on the beach. This year alone, the beachfront homeowners, they're staking off stuff everywhere because of all this stuff going on. And it's
Well, I mean, it's a symptom of they own private property on the beach and people are exploiting it.
and they should. If they own to the property and they own to the water, that should be their property. They should control it. But everything else, that should be a different story.
All right, well, when the when we take our proposed changes to the BCC, we'll make sure that all of y'all get a message. There's 2 other issues, and we're losing people that we need to cover, which are actually, we need to make sure everybody was here. First is ghost sets, okay, the problem, because that was a problem, and we need y'all to give us some recommended solutions, because we have some recommended solutions, but we know y'all probably won't like them. And then the other one is non-compliant boxes, okay? There was a decision made prior to the beginning of this season by the county attorney and the county administrator that those boxes that had been permitted that were outside the boxes described in the ordinance would be allowed through this season, and that they would not be allowed next season. And we need to make sure that y'all understand that. And unfortunately, I think the one that has the most of them is La Dolce Vita, and he left, didn't he? Does he have the most of those non-compliant boxes that we were talking about prior to the season, Jeff? Yes. Okay, so you need to make sure that we contact him. But the rest of you need to know, if you have a non-compliant box, the decision was made to grandfather you in this year, but that it wouldn't be allowed next year. So if you want to make a proposed change to the ordinance, you need to bring that to us. So if we can talk about those 2 topics before we lose everybody, I appreciate it.
Including kiosk. Not only the storage boxes, but the kiosk as well.
And then one last thing, and I don't ask a question I don't know the answer to right here. Does the South Walton Turtle Watch Group ever give certain vendors special treatment to start early?
No.
Not on the south, not on the west end.
Adam, the only time we have problems is early setup. All you have to do is get a printout and see how early we're there every morning until we can't see anymore this time of year and we start later. And no, we never did anybody. In fact, as you know, we used to when we started out before all this mess, and you create a lot of it, started, was when the shirt went by, we weighed, that's when, there wasn't much going on. But then 2 Saturdays
It does.
works good.
It does.
All you have to do is wait for the text, and it comes early all summer long. So I do not understand your complaints at all.
Because they're not always.
Hey, Adam, all right, hey, let's, me and y'all, we'll discuss this after the meeting. We're
Yeah.
getting into personal attacks here, don't need to do it. It's not the forum for it.
The reason why I said that is because I'm not going to lie. I have actual proof of a vendor who marked off a turtle nest with umbrellas because he started setting up early. Okay? And there was no complaint filed because I looked it up. It's a very big beach service, and I have my proof. So I do know that they set up early and marked off the nest with umbrellas. And I don't know if y'all gave him permission or not, but you did not make a complaint. And you complain on me every time you get a chance. You post my pictures on Facebook also.
Okay, Adam, appreciate it. Thank you. Sure.
Hey, Lacey Meyer, Beach Services, Inc. We have a large setup that I have, and since I love the texting, I want to thank you because that really helps us. And we're on call. We wait to get it, and it's worked out beautifully for us and for you too. So I want to thank you because y'all have done a great job. Thank you.
You got anything?
I agree with Lacey on that. I think they've done a phenomenal job of trying to make this as easy as they can for everybody. But I want to switch topics, if I might. If I recall correctly, there was supposed to be some sort of 3 strikes rule with violations.
It wasn't.
Did
It wasn't
that-
accepted in the revisions, and it's by administrative hearing. Just by administrative hearing. There is no number of strikes.
Oh, okay. So at this point, if there are continuous violations through the
Right.
season, what is the process now exactly? Like,
Process is we would ask for administrative hearing from the county legal department, county administration department, and as the way the ordinance reads, possible revocation of permit by administrative hearing. So it would be a legal review, and the ordinance says they have the ability to do that. So,
okay. But is there like one warning, then one?
the way it is, they get a warning, written warning, then the first citation, $100, and then it's progressive by $100 for most of the ordinance violations. There are a few that have a different progression scale.
Okay.
Bonfires is different.
Thank you.
Okay, one other item I want to bring up is delivery vendors delivering to a neighborhood beach access. There's usually no parking available at a neighborhood beach access. So some of the complaints we got this year were associated with vendors parking on adjacent property. So if there's not a parking space available, don't park on somebody else's private property. And just be aware of that. We'll be also enforcing that this year. Part of our program this off-season is installing new bike racks and defining the entrances to the neighborhood beach accesses. So there'll be landscape and hardscape installed there at most of the beach accesses on 30A. So just be aware of that if you are delivering to a single-family dwelling, you need to park in their driveway. If you're delivering to a beach access, you need to find public parking somewhere near there and deliver your goods from there. Any more items to discuss?
Go sets.
Go sets.
The recommendation. We had significant problems with go sets this year, where people are supposed to have to rent it every day, and they get set up every day, but there's nobody there all day, and so we get complaints that there's nobody there all day. So our solution, particularly at neighborhood beach accesses, and so the solution, one solution would be no storage, period. Okay, if you're not a site-specific vendor authorized to have boxes, then you don't get to leave it there. But I'm not sure that's balancing properly, but that is a solution. But we want to hear what solutions y'all have, because it is a problem, and we know it goes on. You can look at the complaint log and see complaints of people with ghost sits. So if you got a solution, we would love to hear it.
I don't have a solution. I would, Eric Johnson, Miramar Beach Service. No solution, just clarification. I thought after this season that we were not going to be allowed to store at the toe of the dunes anymore anyway. I thought we discussed that at the preseason meeting.
No, it was interpreted by county legal department that the ordinance allows for storage at the toe of the dune by delivery vendors, provided the equipment is to be rented the next day. So, yeah. So
I can tell you that's in the history, that's been the ruling. Even the leave no trace tags and all the revision prior to the 2013 revision didn't allow any storage there, so you couldn't store it on the public accesses. Now, since our preseason meeting, we had some issues with that, just 2 or 3. We sent it to county legal, and legal decided that you can leave it wherever as long as it's at the toe of the dune. So that's why you're starting to see them chained to the beach kiosk signs and boardwalks and all that stuff on the county accesses now, because the legal department has made that, they've rendered that interpretation of the ordinance, which is different than what it has been in the past.
we do ask that you follow the specific vendor means and methods for that. That is stacked nice and neat, perpendicular, to the dune. Yes, ma'am.
On the storage by the dune when there are not boxes, I've noticed that sometimes, I've never complained about it, but I've noticed that at times that after renters have left, that the chairs are not picked up within, let's say, 12 or 24 hours or something like that. Is there some guideline as to how long chairs can be left?
The ordinance reads they can be stored at toe the dune if they are to be rented the next day. Now, the typical explanation is that I have them rented for the week, and at the end of the week they'll be removed if they're not going to be rented again at that same location. Yes, sir.
The ghost set, is this on?
Hmm.
The ghost set thing is really a bigger problem than it's kind of talking about here, because once again, after last year, I purposely asked my guests, or have my son ask the guests about situations. I have no objection to the vendors. In fact, I don't provide chairs for my guests so that the vendors get the business. Same reason I don't have bicycles. I don't, let the local businesses get it. So I have no, but when they go down there and they go down at 9 or 10, which most people do, and all the good spaces are taken up by beach vendors, well, maybe not all of them, but like we said in Great Beach, there's no adhering to this zone thing. But, why can't, for example, let's say, we got them rented all week. People may show up for 2 hours. They may not show up at all. Why couldn't we have a situation where no vendor could have more than 2 vacant chairs? Just flat, no more. If the chairs aren't occupied, they get taken off. This gives the public beaches, I'm talking about public beaches, this gives every member of the public a reasonably good chance of getting a good space. The chair does not have much value. The space has a lot of value, and that's what these guys are profiting from. I don't have a problem with that, but it should be equitable. And equitable says, if I send how about if I did this? If I got up at 7:30 in the morning and set out 24 chairs for my 12 rooms, the best spaces on the beach. I mean, how would these guys like that? That's essentially what they're doing to my business. So I'm a small business too. Like I said, I'm for them, but they got to do it equitably.
Good point, Kurt. Once again, the GO-SET problem will be addressed with the BCC in our summary and recommendations. And we'll offer up different suggestions, recommendations of how we feel could make it more easily regulated and enforced. And hopefully it will eliminate that problem. But they'll all be addressed at the BCC summary. Okay? Any more? All righty. Well, going into the next season, like I say, there's going to be a... Yes, ma'am.
All you good vendors out there, and that is probably 95% of you, thank you for a good season. You use the text program, and yes, we had a vendor in Miramar find a nest for us that a walker had missed, and we do appreciate you. We really do, because we know you're out on the beach. We know you know what a sea turtle track looks like, but it's our job to do it, and we couldn't do it without a lot of you, so thank you. And October 1st, mark this down, you will get no more texts. You can set up whenever you want. We still have nests in the ground, but our contract with TDC says we walk through September 30th. So even though it's season, don't expect a text, just set up, and we'll be there to check nests. Thank you, all of you.
Hey, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm just going to call a spade a spade. The folks that's here probably you don't need to hear what I got to say, but I'm going to read these things because the people that watch the video can hear it. Storing your stuff at Toa to do not return the next day. We talked about that in GO-SETs, upland permission. Charcoal left on the beach after bonfires. We're starting to see a lot of bonfire debris that seem to follow permitted bonfires 2 or 3 days out. Our guys are checking bonfires every night, unless it's a guy's day off, but probably 9 out of 10 bonfires that we check are vendor fires. So if you're having vendor fires, don't bury your stuff, because we've had that issue where we've come by and your bonfire's in, we come back and an hour later the bonfire's gone and the ground's all nice and smooth and we dig up a bonfire. And that's just guaranteed paperwork. That's irreversible damages. You don't get a warning for that. So if it's irreversible or irreparable, that's irreversible. That's a straight citation. You don't get a warning. Permit number on the box. We understand that some of the permits were a little bit later coming out because of some issues with the legal that had to go that way to get permission, that kind of stuff. If you don't have your number on your permit box now, you still don't have your permit, which means there's a problem, and we've notified you of that, so follow up with that. Vendors not cleaned up around your vendor sets. The ordinance reads you're responsible for the trash and debris within 100 foot of your setups. So when you tear down in the afternoon, you're responsible for the trash and garbage within 100 foot of your sets. Setting up in front of lifeguard towers, had a couple of those issues early. That hadn't been an issue lately, Dave, is that right? Come permitting time next year, vendors presenting property owner information for permits. When you bring your upland property owner permission, make sure it's the property owner, not the rental person that's got one rental unit out of a 12-unit complex that's trying to give you permission for the entire complex, because we will not approve your permits for that. You have to have the permission from the entire HOA or every unit number, not just a rental service that's in that unit. Kiosks, storage boxes, bonfires. If you're a vendor providing service for a bonfire, another issue we're seeing is that the vendors are making the person go get the bonfire permit, and the vendor's not cleaning up tomorrow, so it puts the liability on the person. So if you're going to do business as a beach vendor and charge these people to provide this service, provide the service and don't put the monkey on their back. Setting up around the mouth of outfalls. If the outfall is 100 foot closed, then that's fine. If it's 12 feet, don't run a row of umbrellas across the mouth of the lake, because it cuts us off. It cuts Lieutenant Gray and his guys off. It cuts South Walton Fire off. You have to maintain that emergency vehicle and service vehicle access. Using public beach accesses for seasonal rentals. if you got a house that's 6 blocks in and you contract with that house for 3 months of service and you provide that setup on a public beach every day, that's just back to the question we had with Clay a while ago. That's providing a service on a public beach that you can't do. You can rent to that person weekly or daily or however you do that, but you can't provide a contractual service on a public beach. And that's what's happening on a couple of accesses, which is creating some of our ghost sets. So, and somebody mentioned a while ago the whole beach chair, buying chairs at Walmart conversation. There's a beach vendor that we're in contact with now that's buying Walmart chairs and scattering them around. And what turned us onto it is because they had like 30 sets of matching chairs and umbrellas from Walmart in the same spot. So they're not all nice, pretty vendor chairs that's $300 a set. They're the $19 Walmart chairs. It's that, yeah, and the bonfires too. So, I mean, we're not out there to try to kick you guys in the toes and kick sand in your eyes, but just don't put us on the spot. I mean, we'll work with y'all if y'all will work with us, but I mean, don't just throw it in our face. Lieutenant Gray, anything out of your guys? David, as far as the lifeguards, you good? Sammy, bonfires?
Very briefly, I just want to say it has been a good season for us. I know the Turtle folks had an outstanding year. I keep up with their nest. They do a good job of notifying us. And I don't have exact numbers, but I'm going to say our lifeguards contacted 700,000 people for the year, roughly. That's our guards making contact with people coming down to the beach. And I look at this list, it's 150 complaints or citations. I think those are pretty good numbers. So build on that is what I would suggest, and we move forward on to next year. There's always room for improvement. We're open to any suggestions and ideas. You just got to let us know. Appreciate you letting us be here today. That's it.
10-4. A few things before we close. Yep, sure.
Can you tell me how the bonfire thing works? How does the bonfire permitting work? I mean, for some reason, I thought that there was no bonfire permitting on public beaches. Is that right or not? No. So they just have to get it from you?
We can talk after this.
Okay. Okay, and does it count as a bonfire when people use these big metal, I don't know what you call it. Okay, so I got you. Thank you.
Okay, a few things before we close. As we talked about earlier in the meeting, there's going to be a summary to the BCC of all of our efforts and activities. At that point, they'll ask us for recommendations on changes to the ordinance. How did it work? Why did you have problems in this area? What do you think we ought to do to eliminate those problems? So pay attention to your emails. You'll be getting a notice of those meetings. Tentatively scheduled for October 13th. That's the first BCC meeting of the month. It'll be down here. At that point, it'll be an update to the BCC. They'll ask us to come back, so we'll come back in the first meeting in November. So if you want to participate and be part of it, be aware of those, your email, because you'll be getting invitations. Also, our e-newspaper called Connections, as well as our website, as well as Walton County website for the BCC agenda. Pay attention to all that so that you can be informed and be here to participate. That's all I have. Jim, you got anything you'd like to add?
Sam, you got anything? I just want to thank Brian and Jeff and Dave and Harold Jr. and the beach maintenance guys. Next Wednesday, FYI, if y'all want to participate, from 4 to 6 right here, we're going to have a meeting, a hot wash for postseason on the beach maintenance side. So maintaining walkovers, cleaning the beach, trash pickup, how we can do that better. And y'all are all invited to that because y'all are stakeholders in that beach. Everybody in this room is a stakeholder in that beach. And we want to make sure that we get your feedback so we can make it better. You know, we had a great year, and I will echo what Sammy said. You know, 150 violations over, you know, the course of a summer. The one thing that I'm really proud of is that we're getting better at this. If you remember the very first meeting that I held 2 years ago, I know Lacey was there, I know Sharon was there, some of the Turtle Watch folks, almost all of y'all were here, and it was just rancorous, and people were fighting and pointing fingers. We got to get beyond that. We can disagree, okay, but we need to be respectful because we all have a stake in that beach out there. And this will be, if you come next Wednesday, I'll see you next Wednesday, but this will probably be the last time I see most of you, so I just want to thank you for the work that you've done in helping this destination become what it is. And unless anybody has any questions, I'll give it back to Brian to adjourn us.
Last chance for questions. Appreciate everybody's participation. Have a good day.